observation, really. And the observation I wanted to make is when we think about who we are, and I'm hitting 60 and I'm probably the average age here, if possibly slightly younger, and I'm 60 next year, and I'm thinking, where are our young people? Well, our young people are not having the same experience as us. When I left school and started work, I left school at 16, but when I went off and started work, I got politicised by joining my local union, because when you went into jobs years ago, you got your job, you got terms and conditions, you joined your union, when you went to union meetings and you met people of our age and you learnt from them. I don't think that's happening for young people now. I've been working in my job for this job now that I do for 3.5 years. We work in silos. I don't even have any terms and conditions. I have no sick pay, no holiday pay. This is not unusual now. Basically, I think young people work at home a lot. They're in individualized silos. They're not getting politicized at work. They're not joining trade unions in the large sense. In the UK, anyway, talking about the UK, they're just not brought into that political learning. They haven't got that space to do it. The thing that young people are immediately worried about, I think, the thing that we're not mentioning at all in any of our discussion, and what most young people will talk about if you ask them, regardless of where they are and what class they're in, actually, is they'll talk about the environment, and they'll talk about sustainability, and they'll talk about fears that the planet's going to die. That's going to be their big fear. Their big fear, unfortunately, isn't that they link that to a class struggle. And arguably, an awful lot of the environmentalist movement comes from the middle classes as well. We realise that. And, the reality is a lot of those don't understand or even think about class struggle. They don't understand about loss of rights. They're not thinking about the link between capitalism and the destruction of the planet. But what they're thinking about is they are thinking the planet's going to die unless we do something about it. And some of them are thinking we need to smash capitalism. So I think that we're having a conference like this, and it's so important. And I've learned so much from you guys and all the individual stuff that's going on around the globe. But if we want young people to really get involved on any level, and if we need to be linked to the young people, we need to underpin everything that we say needs to be linked and considering sustainability, stop oil, looking at renewable resources and how we save our species. I think the planet will be fine without us, to be honest. I think the planet will do very well without humans, actually. But I think with humans, if we want humans to survive, we need to be talking about that in all of our political discussion. There needs to be a kind of thread of environmentalism, because I think it's only then that young people will take our conversation seriously. In the same way, I think a lot of people our age who are talking about political struggle from a class perspective and class war issues and fascism and all the things that are hugely important and burning in our discussion, quite rightly, I think we often don't take just stop oil and people like that very seriously. It's because we're not speaking each other's language, and I think that's a massive problem. I think there's huge work for us to do as an example about how we include and attract more conversation to this conversation. That's all I wanted to say. It's been fantastic, though. I'm not being critical.
Thanks, Trish. When we're gone, we hope that we will have overthrown the monopolies which are causing the climate change and the huge emissions. We need to integrate that into our theory and our practice. Other contributions? We are somewhat, please come forward. And comrades, we have to look quite closely at the time, so please excuse me if I have to indicate.
Nigel from Internationalist Standpoint. Just to say, I'm here in solidarity with Internationalist Standpoint. Just a little bit of a background about why we're here. We were comrades in the CWI until 2018, involved in the split in the CWI. I won't go into all the details, there isn't time. Then we went with the ISA, International Socialist Alternative, for a period. and we left them very quickly. Now, that's not because we split us. That's because we wanted a better democracy in the organisation, and it didn't exist. We didn't want this messianic leadership as existed in the CWI and so forth. So we are interested in better forms of democracy, and more advanced forms of democracy, ones that reflect Marxist ideas and not neoliberal and Stalinist ideas, which all forms of democracy in Great Britain, all forms of organisations, that's what is represented within them. There isn't an example I can think of which has an open democratic structure. And that's why we're attracted to WIN, the openness, the willingness to learn from each other. I mean, Trish has mentioned, sorry, about criticism, but criticism is actually the only thing that drives us forward. Without criticism, we can't progress, because we cannot have the ideas in our heads. They don't exist in our heads, they exist elsewhere, and they have to come from elsewhere, come all around us all the time. I mean, it's one of the things I fell out with the Socialist Party very strongly on, was the environment, and put a motion to the last Congress that I, you know, as a member, in criticising their poor response to the climate change. You know, that was something that was very dear to my heart. So I could talk a long time about us. I mean, we have Internationalist Standpoint have got connections in various countries, very small groups, a good significant group in Greece, Cyprus, Turkey, Taiwan, Romania, Australia, various places. Some of those groups extremely young in character. The one in Romania, incredibly young. The one in Taiwan, incredibly young in character. You know, young people new to politics, wanting to find ideas, many of them school students. So there is a thirst for knowledge out there in unexpected, probably, environments and places. But I understand exactly where Trish is coming from. You know, the consciousness has gone backwards. We're having to start from a different point. And I think Carell's contribution was very interesting. The cross community work. I mean, I've moved recently. I've only been in my current place for 2 years, so we kind of I'm trying to build links and connections. Where I was before, some of what Carell was saying sounded a bit like what we were trying to do. That cross-community thing is absolutely critical. And I was criticised, actually, by Socialist Alternative for being too involved in the Trades Council, which was young in character. It was young in character. It was dynamic in character, and too involved in cross-community groups. And I wasn't recruiting. I wasn't prepared to recruit. I didn't want to recruit into that organisation. Then shortly afterwards, I left that organisation. I'm reminded, though, having moved to a town called Halifax, near a town called Halifax, a bit of the history of the working class movement. I know we've had a lot of history from Roger, and I won't take too long on this, and I know we're very short of time. But Halifax was the centre of the first world global strike in 1842. And it was a national strike, which is very little known about, involving 500,000 workers in England and Scotland. And Halifax was its centre. And just very briefly, the miners came out and the weavers came out, the people in the mills came out. They came out because of falling wages. Wages had fallen in the previous 2 decades. Conditions were getting worse in the factories. They came out, they organised, and the way they organised was right across England by the use of carrier pigeons. And the carrier pigeons communicated across England when the strike would start. They communicated across England by carrier pigeon when the marches would start. And workers in their tens of thousands marched from Lancashire into Yorkshire, into Halifax. 25 workers came into Halifax. On the way, they closed the mills. They knocked out the, you'll know about this, they knocked out the stops from the boilers. They broke the boilers, stopped the boilers working. They spoke to the workers. They took the workers with them into Halifax. The strike lasted for 10 days. Women were as involved and as prominent as men. Children were involved as well, because there were children workers. And women were as prominent. There were as many women involved in the strikes as men. It was bound up with the Chartist movement, and although the strike didn't succeed in terms of an immediate gain in wages, it succeeded in frightening the government into changing its policies. And the government introduced a new Factories Act as a consequence, but also infiltrating the embryonic unions that were being made, infiltrating them by the state, and introducing organised police, organising the police force to resist the strikes. And so the state took this very seriously, and the state organised. I'm making this point because I think, one, it's inspirational that workers spontaneously organised in 1842. This was 6 years before the Communist International. Sorry, this was 6 years before the Communist International. Yeah, workers organised, and I just think we can learn in that way, and we can work together. And our new pigeons is the internet.
Okay, comrades, I won't take much time. It's been a really very stimulating and very worthwhile weekend. I'll admit that when I came here, I was a little despondent because I was hoping that a lot more comrades would actually participate physically in the meeting here. But first of all, those comrades who did have made a fantastic contribution and really lifted my spirits. But secondly, also, I'm absolutely full of admiration and gratitude to all the comrades from around the world who participated on Zoom. I think throughout the weekend, we've had never less than 25 or so comrades altogether online and physically here participating in the meeting, and sometimes at least 50, and I think maybe more than 50 at the peak times. And all the contributions have been great. We've had comrades here from, I calculate now, one way or another, we've had participation by comrades in 20 countries on all 5 continents. And I think that's an achievement. Now, we don't have grandiose pretensions. WIN is very small so far. We're very happy that we're linking up with co-thinkers, particularly the comrades from international standpoints, who I think we've arrived at very similar conclusions, and I'm sure that there'll be nothing standing in the way of our cooperating and fusing in the over the period ahead. One thing I wanted to say, I particularly liked the contribution by Comrade Patrick when he was talking about the comparison or the analogies between the international which is coming and the internationals of the past. And I agree with him that we mustn't be too glib about just saying, well, it's like the first international. I mean, the parallel, we emphasize that parallel from the start, because all or nearly all of the sects, they think that all we need to do is recreate the third international. All we need to do is, or at least recreate something in the model of the third international at its inception, which is what Trotsky was trying to do, quite rightly at the time, in 1938, to create a new revolutionary leadership along those lines. Now, we wanted to emphasize that because it's a new working class globally, we can't just start from that starting point. We have to start building again. There's a fresh working class even in the more developed countries, and there's certainly a fresh working class in China and the other countries where the industrial working class is now concentrated. But you're right, the analogy only goes up to a certain point. Of course, it will be different. Every international was different because it was operating in different conditions. And the situation now, as you say quite rightly, I mean, at the time of the first international, it was really preparing for a future at the birth of really the modern industrial working class. Today it's very different. We're in a situation of unprecedented crisis, a situation where the future of humanity, never mind the conditions of the working class, but the very existence of human society is at risk again. Not only, of course, by the environmental things, but even we're hurtling towards catastrophic economic collapse, hurtling towards world war, very graphically illustrated in the discussions we've had in this weekend, and hurtling towards as well the environmental catastrophe, even if we avoided all those other social issues. So I think we're building on sound foundations. I think that's really. I think we don't need to say any more on that. I think we've made a very positive and encouraging start. And thank you, comrades. We have to build up our resources. We have to build up our online presence. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a website which needs drastically rejigging now, and getting it on a proper foundation. We've got to bring up more frequently now our online and print publications, like On the Brink. We've got absolutely fantastic material to offer. We need to publicise it and push it a bit more widely. We have to continue our regular Zoom meetings with reports and participation and debate of people around the world. One last point. I wanted to answer Dave's question, which he's left now. But Dave said, what's the difference between what we're doing and what the USFI is doing, the so-called Fourth International? The difference is, I had the opportunity to meet with one of the leaders of the so-called Fourth. He says they don't call ourselves the USFI anymore. We just call ourselves, he said, the Fourth International. This is a comrade that I met when I was attending the Pakistan conference in 2018. And he said, no, we don't call ourselves the USFI, we just call ourselves the Fourth International. I said, is that not a little presumptuous? You are not an international, let alone you're not the Fourth International, as Trotsky conceived it. He said, well, perhaps if we were starting again now, perhaps we give ourselves a different name. So I said, well, that's important. But I said, look, the point is, what do you do? He said, well, we don't impose any kind of line. Everybody goes, we're really a solidarity. And that's very good. We have to have solidarity groups. We are organising, even with our small resources, we're organising solidarity with trade unionists in Stockholm, in Namibia, and in Belarus. We've heard examples of that just today. But we're more than that. We're trying to create the foundations for a worldwide party of socialist revolution. That's what the International is for. And we do that without imposing a particular sectarian line. We do that by comradely interaction and debate and discussion, as we've seen very clearly at this weekend, as of course in all of our things, and every week on our WIN discussion meetings too. But we are more than just a discussion group. It's discussion towards a resolution, towards an understanding. That's why we produce documents now, which are the fruit of years and decades of interaction and discussion. And that discussion and theory are absolutely essential for the development of a workers' movement, a worldwide workers' movement, which is insured against the danger and the risk of making the mistakes of the past and leading to further defeats. Theory and discussion and debates are crucial, because we want to we want to not only build a worldwide movement of the working class, but make sure that we build a worldwide movement of the working class that will achieve the victory of socialism worldwide.